And a form of action is to do the thing that is like most alive and beautiful to you. It was so evident to me that I am the only blocker from me having all of these things.
When I treat myself with kindness and compassion in front of other people, it gives them permission to treat themselves with kindness and compassion. It makes me go back to thinking about how anger is beautiful and inspires us into action.
Welcome to Creative Current, a podcast for those of us who want to get caught up in our creativity.
We're Jess and Jen, two friends and creatives who met in tech and realized we both spoke the same language of possibility, imagination, and creation.
We believe that creativity is a living force, powerful and magnetic. Like a current, you don't control it. And when you stop fighting it and let it move you, you realize it leads you to where you wanted to be all along.
This podcast is about staying with that current through self-doubt, uncertainty, and loneliness, and trusting that your creativity is worth it.
Over the next 12 weeks, we'll be following the artist's way, and we'll be discussing the chapters and our experiences doing the work. We see it as an opportunity to explore the depths of creativity and its connection to life's biggest questions and possibilities in a collaborative, community-building way.
We're really glad you're here. Okay, so we are at chapter 11. My gosh, there's only one more chapter.
I know now that we're at this point, it's like, whoa, that went really fast. But I mean, it's been a long time that we've been working on this, through this. It's been so cumulative, I feel like. So welcome to week 11.
So week 11 is recovering a sense of autonomy. And the themes here are acceptance, success, the zen of sports, and building your artist's altar.
Oh my gosh, I love that you brought in your crystals for the artist's altars. That sounds very on point.
That is a great point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, so for listeners, I've never really been a crystal person, and now I do have a few crystals on my desk. I find them to be just visual reminders of acceptance and just, being present. So yeah, I guess I have my little artist altar. So Jen, I mean, our usual question, unless you want to field this somewhere else, but what came up most for you in this chapter?
I guess I'll do a little overview of what came up. I think acceptance was really interesting to read this week. And I feel like I was a little surprised by some of the ways that she was describing artists. I notice a big difference when people use the term creative and what sort of expected things flow out of a creative person compared to an artist and what maybe people expect to come out of an artist. And so I was like, this is an interesting thing. And in September, was the first time where I started to experiment with claiming artist as my title, and creative is still in there, but yeah, I do think that there is a difference there. I think there's probably more hesitation, almost like claiming artist as a part of your identity feels less common or maybe more bold than just creative. And then
wait, Jen, could I do a little clarifying follow-up just on that before we go into the next topic? What are the connotations that come up for you between artist and creative?
Okay, so to me, creative feels so vast and kind of expansive and applicable and valuable. Like it sounds way more culturally valuable, perhaps, because people can identify, or at least in my experience, creativity is very valued in workspaces. So it's like economically valuable, and it can also be very independently, self-expressively valuable. You can be a creative and do all these different things, and it feels almost like maybe more accepted. And I feel like that can include the people that just have artistic things as hobbies. Like they might maybe call themselves creatives more more likely than they would call themselves artists. Artist to me carries this connotation of like, and again, this is the conditioning and the connotations. I am not saying truth here.
Totally.
But it's like, to me, artist feels like a level of seriousness to it, and that I am doing this artistic practice as part of my career. Like I am building something with this. And I find that when I use the word artist, and I just had this wonderful experience of being in a new group of people where I was being introduced as an artist, and it was beautiful, but it was so interesting the questions that you get back, where people like then expect that, what's the word? It's like this expectation that your work has been received and platformed by some gatekeeper. Like that's the expectation. It's like, if you have the boldness to call yourself an artist, then you must have arrived. You must have arrived somewhere where somebody else has chosen you and qualified you to be at this level. And again, not that that's what anybody is saying, but the response informs that.
Ooh, Jen, I think everything you're describing feels exactly like what I would have said and answered.
Mm.
And that makes me think that this is not just you, but I think you are expressing a lot of how folks would sort of define both or like etch the differences or the trail off of both descriptors. How did it feel to start embracing the word artist, and why did you want to gravitate toward that?
Um, how did it feel? It felt very uncomfortable. And and again, I know I've said something similar to this on the podcast in a different context, but it's just like it was so evident to me that I am the only blocker from me having all of these things. Like it's
Hmm.
my own discomfort, my own desire to like shrink and be smaller and be more easier to understand, more legible. And just the truth is of why it was also so hard is because I was just in such a new paradigm. Like, do you know how much easier it would have been for me to say I'm an artist if I had also had my kids still at home with me? Because they are stay at home age, you know? Um,
Yeah.
and instead, I had my kids in preschool, including my youngest, who was 2. And the question, I can't figure out what you do because what are you doing all day if you're a mom to young kids and you don't really like
Yeah.
the
Like what
judgment. And then
box?
like when
Yeah.
people would ask questions, like trying to be like, well, what, like who is funding this for you? And then I would have to like backtrack. Would be like, well, I mean, and then I do other things too, like I coach and I do have some contract work. And then it's the contract work is what everyone just gravitates to. It's like that is my past. That is what allows me, and generally, not everyone, but that is what people will be like, oh, okay, okay. Because it's like they can't handle that I could just choose
Yeah.
pursuing my artistry and like creativity as my primary thing without, because, and it's like that's so confronting because if somebody can do that in your life, there's like a mirror there. Like it creates a mirror. So I
Hmm.
know, I recognize this confronting fact, and I have to decide every day of am I comfortable enough or not, and I change depending on the
Yeah.
day.
Ooh, Jen, that's, I think, so relatable. I mean, what you described is also something I'm starting to come into a lot myself. And she actually talks about that exactly in this chapter. So I'm gonna make some noises and turn the pages for a second.
Yeah, share more.
Um, I highlighted, hold on. What I underlined was, as an artist, I must be very careful to surround myself with people who nurture my artist, not people who try to overly domesticate it for my own good. And I like another thing that makes me think about what you just said is that if I allow myself to be bullied and cowed by other people's urges for me to be more normal or more nice, I sell myself out. They like me better, feel more comfortable with my more conventional appearance or behavior, but I will hate myself.
My gosh.
Um,
Yes. This is good. Yes. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah.
Just tell me how like this shows up for you or what it leads you to next.
Oh my gosh. I don't love that I'm using this word, but we're just going to embrace it. I feel like I'm in a very fragile state right now. And it's crazy because I have been craving a bit of a pause with contract work because I keep prioritizing my contract work over my creative pursuits. And what's coming forward is this nag of just you did the hard thing, you quit the job. So if you quit the job, now is the time to do the creative work. And you only have a certain amount of time, which uh, footnote, I feel like that's a myth, but it's a myth the fear wants to bring up. So you only have a certain amount of time to get your creative work off the ground. So what are you doing? And as I craved a break in contract work, I've had a creative flow, like a river of flow or a creative flush pour out of me the last 2 days. And it felt really disorienting. And so when I'm in this disoriented state of, wow, I dipped in so far, I got so many epiphanies, it also feels scary and it makes me crave wanting the stability and the contract work back of what I know and clarity and goals. And of course, money is coming in this way. And so, thus, bringing it back, being around people that are more comfortable with that approach of life and income, that is not good for me right now. So, I'm actually trying to shield myself in this invisible protective cocoon. And the choice that I make to call anyone in my life right now is very based on, do I think you're going to support me in this? And if the answer is no, and if I feel any sense that this person might kick up fears inside of me, I won't call them or we will avoid the topic completely. But it's funny that when I'm actually the deeper end of the pool and my feet can't touch the bottom, this is really making me so intentional about who I bring into my sphere right now. Yeah. And I don't
Thank you.
know, I mean, I have a group of people that I'm meeting with this weekend, and I've been debating canceling the plans and being okay with that. I don't think I'm going to cancel, and so then there's a little bit of a, okay, how do I gear up for this and present differently to keep the shield intact? And yeah, I guess it's to say, I don't know that we can avoid every situation like this and still maintain
Yeah.
relationships we want to have in our lives. So,
Mm. Oh my gosh. Okay. Can we dig into this a little bit more? This feels so, I mean, I know everything we talk about is real life, but like this feels so real life to me too. There's like two elements that I feel like come into play. On the one end, it's like your personal power and understanding what you can control, and also that you do have the power to cancel or to step away from things. Not that you actually need to set that boundary, but remembering that you have that choice is so good.
yeah,
Um, and yet, there is the reality of other people's energy to affect us. And
yeah.
so it's like the situations of when do we do our work, protect ourselves, and when do we put up
Mm.
a boundary is so fascinating.
Jen, I don't know if you do this, but I guess I feel like I will box out time to go be creative and spiritual. And in that time, I will put my phone, I mean, this is probably different as a mom, but like I put my phone on do not disturb for hours, almost all day. I don't want to be contacted by anybody. I don't want anyone's energy interrupting my flow state. And then there are full days into creativity and then full days out. And I can mentally overnight and between the next morning know that, okay, a different version of myself is going to show up today. That's how I've been able to toggle between the two. But is that the same for you? How is it different? And
No, I
what do
don't.
you work through?
That's a good question. Okay, so it's something that I sense and noticed, and I don't have like a judgment on it at this point, but I am like compulsively responsive to other people. Like I
Can verify.
that's like I don't know. Like, so having boundaries with like communications and stuff like that is really hard. So I
Mm,
sometimes have to like not look at my phone, but then this feeling that there is something there is hard. And I do, like with Marco Polo, sometimes like I know they were there and I let them sit for a couple of days if I need to. But I have such a burden around it too at the same time of not responding because I get something out of it too. It's like, but I very often will end up having the whole first half of my day disappear trying to catch up with everybody.
mhm, mm,
And And so, like, okay, maybe I've actually started my day with my morning pages and setting some intentions and doing breath work. And then I see all these needs and I'm like, okay, let's take care of them all. And I don't always know if it's the right choice, but then my intention and my journaling has all been around just trusting the next thing. And then I find that things work out at the end of the day. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? But I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't feel like I have a self-concept that I need to respond to everyone because I also find that most of these people are people that I love
Mhm,
and showing up and being supportive in different ways or like getting support, whatever. Being in communication relationship is actually really sustaining and rewarding for me. So it's
mhm,
like,
mhm,
but
mhm.
so, and
Yeah.
at the end of the day, my life has been full of so much life and death, like in the past month. And I think it's putting
Mm,
things like this into perspective for me because
mm,
I'm like, I do trust myself that I will complete the work that is like on my heart, in my soul, whatever to create. Like, I trust. I don't know how long the timeline's going to be, but it's like, I'm not afraid that I'll stop. So if other things are coming up that are like matters of life and love, I think my hierarchy that I have been kind of forced to grapple with is a hierarchy between love and creativity. And I never even thought of distinguishing those things before the last several weeks, but now I'm like, I think love comes first for me, then creativity. And so if there's acts of love that are calling for my attention, then I want to do that. And that's so gray area. Like, cuz again, it's like I am not saying that I should put everything for me aside in the service of other people, but I think that I can discern what
yeah.
is actually calling my attention and like and of course, remember just for the nuance here that sometimes acts of love are setting boundaries and creating clarity and ending something. Like
Mhm,
love is
mhm,
multivaried.
mhm.
Oh, sorry, can I just say one last thing that I'm experimenting on this?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, this is a new brain blast from this week. Jess, do you identify, I think you do. Do you identify as a highly sensing person, like a porous
I
individual,
think
like
so.
sensing energies?
Yeah. Yeah.
Same. And I have always seen that as like a pro and a con. You know what I mean? Like there's like
Mm,
pros to that, like oh, it allows for empathy, it allows for understanding, it allows for reading a room. And then the cons are like really viscerally having like projections flow into you, and I'm like absorbing negative energies and feeling like you have to manage them, not always knowing where they're coming from.
mhm.
Okay. I think this is a clear example that I think other parents will really relate to, and non-parents can relate to it for themselves. But what had started to notice was that like a most clear example of how this was not serving me, this view was like I would just would pick up on energies from sometimes from family and friends and other times from complete strangers about my kids or projections on me as a parent and like how my kids are acting.
Mm, mm,
I might be actually okay with it in the situation. Sometimes I'm not okay with it, but like I might be okay with how they're doing in a situation. I might be able to handle it. But then sometimes I would still react and respond to my kids out of the energy of a different source
mm,
because
mm,
I trust my relationship with my kids enough that I can repair it. So it feels safer to me for me to be the one to yell at my kids before it comes from somebody else, do you know? And because I'm like,
Mhm.
I know I feel like we have secure attachment. I know how to repair. I know I can explain to them later. But then I'm like, what? Like, that can't be the best solution. Like, maybe it was this coping strategy, but it's like, that does not where I want it to be. So, anyways, my new experiment and intention is if I am porous, just like imagine this, like if you're a sponge and you're
Yep.
porous, right?
Yep.
What if I just flow the other way? Like, what if my frequency can be so strong that it flows
Yes.
out
Yes.
and I
Yes.
am like not responding? So I had Kate
Mm.
Northrup, she's a really awesome money coach, and she's used this term of being a thermostat. There's a person in every room that is the thermostat. They have the strongest like nervous system, the strongest frequency. And I was
Yes.
like, okay, so wait, this is
Yes.
my new challenge. Like, I want to be the thermostat, and it will be high frequency I am sending out.
Oh my God. Oh, I love that we're talking about this, Jen. Okay, so have you had time to practice this?
I have,
Or is it
yes,
just kind of a concept
I
still?
have tried. I have got to practice it. I was in Disney World with my family last
Mm,
week, and
mm.
standing in line with my kids, and oh my gosh, the energies, the up and down
So
energies, and
many
I had
energies.
such a great experience of realizing how much perspective changes every situation. Because I'm like, everyone here is in the same situation and everyone is reacting differently. Like, there are the
Oh,
people
yeah.
that will just choose to smile and like laugh that my kids are being ridiculous and obviously enjoying themselves. And there be the ones that are scolding me purposely, like talking to whoever they're with loud enough so that I can hear them judge
Yeah.
me. Do you know what I mean? And I'm
Yep.
like, and
Yep.
I just was there and I was just like, that's your choice. If that is how you want to have your trip in Disney, you can choose that. Like, and it
Yes.
does not need to affect me. And then my kids, if they cross the line, if they're not being safe, and I still teach them to be respectful, but like, so I'm not saying that I'm like, oh, you do whatever the heck you want,
No.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like my line versus other people's lines,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Do you think that it invisibly shifted the energy or at least or maintained the energy within your family unit?
I felt like I felt like it was a masterclass in me maintaining my own energy. It's hard to
Mhm.
say
Mhm.
exactly from because also I didn't do it perfectly. And I
Yeah,
I was there with my
totally.
parents too, and so that's like a very close observing part. But even then, it's like my parents were teaching me this themselves because they're there as grandparents. And
Yeah.
my kids were screaming. They got crazy in a restaurant late at night, and then we were driving home late, and my little one is so loud and he was like screaming, and I have a rule that we don't scream in the car because it's distracting to the driver, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, oh, I was getting so frustrated and I was coming up with all the different like threats and consequences, and he was so amped up it wasn't working, and I was like, oh my God, this is so annoying, and also I'm just like, whatever. But then after I got them to bed, my dad was like, that was a highlight of my day. He was like, all that excitement, it's no worries. And it was also just evidence. Like, yeah, my kid was really dysregulated, but he had had a day of like all top 10
Yeah.
enjoyment and memories? And so I
Yeah,
thought, like, so I think
absolutely.
that was also a really very unexpected education in this, where I was like, oh, yeah, that is a choice that my dad is choosing to perceive it that way. He doesn't have to, but he chose
Mm.
to. And like, I can just keep that in the back of my mind that there are people that are willing to have the best interpretation of things. And even if they might be few and far between,
Oh, Jen, beautiful. I and I'm laughing. It's funny because hearing you retell that story, I was actually thinking of your littlest one, and it's like making me giggle because I'm finding joy in it through the story. Even though I'm sure it's different as, it's like we're driving, maybe you're feeling exhausted from the day, totally valid. And That's really amazing. It is funny sometimes how maybe we're bracing for other people's judgment and actually instead they are seeing something totally different about the situation. And what a place to experiment with energetically shifting the room or shifting your own internal outlook at Disney World. Oh my gosh. Actually, I do try to do this at airports and on airplanes and working with my coach, who's incredible, Sarah Hanner. She's talked to our group quite often about the power that I don't know if I really want to call it power, but like self-preservation that we have access to in changing our energy and our perception with rooms of people from all over with all kinds of things going on and happening in their world.
How do you do this in airports? Tell me.
Well, actually, I have a bit of a local story, which I was debating about sharing. But a few weeks ago, I went to a meetup, uh, and one of the women had said, and I again, so much compassion here, so much compassion. I was in this exact same place, really, but she said, "Does anyone else here hate their jobs?" And a lot of the women agreed, or rose their hand, shyly. And so everyone shared a little bit around the circle, and then it got to me, and I said, "Oh, well, I quit my job." And Jen, the only way I could interpret this, I feel like she looked at me with daggers in her eyes. And then she immediately says, "Well, don't you have to pay for health insurance?" And it put me on the defense. My just initial instinct was it felt so combative and it felt like, let me take one of the negative scary elements of quitting a job and throw it right back in your face and challenge you on it, which is so frustrating because I've already done that to myself, so many times over and over in the fall. And of course I'm still, I still work with those thoughts from time to time now. And actually, but something amazing happened where I feel like I was able to pause so much in this split second, pause and pull back. And I thought to myself, okay, she's reacting kind of in an there's some what feels like to me a little bit of angry projection here. What would it look like if we just softened right now and kind of reflected softer, kinder energy back? So I let my shoulders sink and I said, "Yeah, I do pay for health insurance." And that was just something that I budgeted before I quit my job. And immediately I saw her soften. And then we, the conversation continued with this circle of women. And then the craziest thing was that a, f- a minute or two later, she then introduced me to somebody else who came in the circle, said, "Oh, we're talking about jobs and our unhappiness." And she said, "Jess over here was actually really brave and did the thing that we all wanted to do and quit her job." And so it was, I mean, I think she just had a moment to pause and perhaps, I don't know that. I don't know if she actually wants to quit her job. I think nobody wants to be miserable in their jobs. I get that. I've felt that. And it still took me some time to come back. I still had to voice note some friends to release that energy. And I think I know I had to release it because I still deal with those internalized feelings and I use them against myself. And so as I'm still healing that, it's just it'll be a little bit of a process, but I just thought to myself, like, man, a few years ago, I don't know that I'd be able to do that. And looking back, it makes me feel a lot stronger. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Jess. I I think it's beautiful that you had that capacity to be able to step back in the moment and respond to her with such grace and compassion and integrity. And I think that is the win. I mean, that is a win. Like I think like that Yeah, that's like so beautiful because then it was like an invitation to her to like recheck rather than responding to the combative. And I think like the energy, like roller coaster after that, I think is also still okay, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so, wow. I love too that it happened in a group setting because it's like not just a gift then to her, but like to everybody else that like observed and heard.
Mm-hmm. It's making me think more and more about just exactly what you said. Like, what does it look like to play and to stand more in my power? And I really started to believe that when I treat myself with kindness and compassion in front of other people, it gives them permission to treat themselves with kindness and compassion. And I think for a long time I was, you know, unaware of that concept even or how to do it. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a component in here is the action taking because it's
mm,
like on a foundational level, you actually taking action on what you wanted to do and taking steps to create the life you want. Like that was self-kindness. Because it's like if you were just like, I don't think it's kind to yourself to know what you want, know you're not happy, and then be kind to yourself of just being like, oh, but
mm,
I'm just not ready. I just when the time's right. Like that sound, I think like that is like where Instagram coaching and stuff, like social media, like just like the way that people share everything, like that type of stuff can be so misunderstood because it's like that does not serve anyone. That is why that the lack of action is, I believe, such a root thing of like why we have so much.
are you
So,
saying that
okay. So, okay.
coaches
Like, so for example, one of my fears sometimes on this podcast is when I talk about like somatic stuff and nervous system stuff, like I
yeah.
am now aware of how frequently people talk about this stuff
Mm,
online. But when I hear some people talk about it, it's like the parenting, like in the parenting circles, because it's just like such an emphasis on wanting calmness or like that, like having some calm life is this goal. And it just feels like such a surfacey, actually not helpful thing. Like, I'm like, if you want the world to look different, like, if you are going to sit and talk and complain about all the politics, about all the shit that's going on, about everything, then, like, I want to see you do something.
mm,
And
mm,
it's not
mm.
going around having conversations about how upset you are to everything. Like, you need to do something good. Like, you need to be a counterexample, you know? Like,
Mm,
if you hate your
mm.
job, if you hate how tech culture is, if you hate how you're being taken advantage of, then, like, you are the one that's responsible to make a choice. And I am like, that is the greatest form of self-love is to reclaim your own agency. And to me, collectively, I'm like, we went through this in 2017. Like, Me Too movement.
I was like, what was 2017 again?
2017 was Me Too. I was like, this is an education for our generation and every generation that follows. Like,
Yeah.
do not let stuff go if you have a problem with it. And a form of action is to do the thing that is like most alive and beautiful to you and creates the counterculture that creates waves. I don't know how I got here on this topic, but I'm just like, don't know where this came from, Jess. I just like people talk about wanting or needing and they sound so high and enlightened, like clarity. I'm like, the fuck. Oh, sorry. Okay. The only way
Like
to
this.
get clarity is by action. You know, like you need to make some choices. You need to try. You need to get input. And this is also where I'm like I feel misunderstood potentially on this podcast because I do talk about visions
Yeah.
and I do get information that way. Absolutely, but it's like but then I also try to use it. I don't know. I don't know, Jess. I just think the action the some people I think rule themselves out and think that for whatever reason they aren't able to do these things and it's because they aren't actually trying, which I know is a big hurdle. And I have like grace and compassion for them. But sometimes the way that my grace and compassion comes out is by delivering a strong word.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So yeah, I don't know. That's just and I think my energy right now is probably influenced by I do feel like just the slight like irritation of feeling like maybe misunderstood or like feeling that like getting grouped in with a lot of these like I mean, I don't know. I can't even tell you in the last month how many people that I follow or am on their email list are all of a sudden now like sharing that they're doing nervous system work. And I'm like, and just because it's trendy, like what input do you and I don't want to be a geek. I think everybody can learn and apply different things, but it's just sometimes the coherence is off.
Mm-hmm.
We we can change
Okay.
direction if you want.
No, I think this is fascinating. I have some, like, counter questions that I'm holding back. But Jen, it's like, what if they were doing it and it was trendy? Um,
So it's basically getting at the like you can like there should be fruit. Like what is the
okay.
fruit of your practice? So if there is somebody that's talking about all these things or trying to achieve something and it does not have the fruit, the outcome, like their
Hmm.
life doesn't look different, then I'm like not trustworthy.
Yeah. And so what's the problem of people trusting them and not seeing the results and not seeing the fruit?
What's the problem? I want our world to change. Like I want to live in a different world, Jessica. Like I do not want to live in the way that our world is going right now. So, like I would like everybody who has a good heart, a big heart to like do stuff to make the world different, to make it better. I don't need a bunch of people sitting around meditating for hours and not using that.
Hey everyone, this is Jess, and I'm listening back as I'm editing this episode. One thing I just want to call out is that I was laughing so much as Jen was unpacking her concepts, and I just realized that I had cut out a bunch of quiet laughter, and I'm afraid that without the laughter it might seem like a tense moment. But we were both sort of just like smiling and giggling on the other sides of the screen. And I completely agree that Jen's take is very important on sparking into action. I also think that day I was just coming from an exploratory perspective. So you'll hear me tease this out with Jen a little bit more and talk about more of an observational take on this. Okay, back to the episode.
I hope also, I feel like I need to sort of give some context for listeners. But anyway, I'm having fun. And Jen, I'm just sensing like it's so interesting for me to kind of pull, you know, feel around this and like see where do the activations sit? Where are the triggers deep down? And like, I think I always, maybe actually, I'm not going to say to a fault. I think where my perspective is accepting whatever process and whatever route needs to occur. And if someone just never gets there in their lifetime, I guess I've just decided that, okay. And I think your energy and fire and fuel is activating and needed. I I just happen to be, I don't know, in
Yeah.
like, I think it's more of like an observation tendency that I have that has always felt really comfortable for me and always sort of just exploring like, okay, yeah, what if somebody trusted the person who says they know what they're talking about? They don't see fruits from their labor. And like maybe it's, I mean, I guess I have an optimistic slant of like maybe it sets them on their own re-exploration of wait a second, like why didn't this work? Who do I need to go to? Or maybe they leave, burdened by this and then maybe that like sets off a chain reaction for someone else to come into their life or like yeah. So anyway, it's exploratory. Thank you for letting me ask you probably pokey
Yes, okay.
questions
No,
that
I
are
love this.
activating.
I love this. I love this. I mean, yeah, I feel like that does feel a little PC to me, but like it is true also, you know? It's like because I think that also feels like a greater truth that I also do believe in is that like no one there is not a burden. Like there is no responsibility to do anything. Like people don't need to arrive anywhere. They don't need to do anything, you know, like there is acceptance. Like I do believe that that's where like love and creativity, the hierarchy sits, you know.
Mhm.
But I get like and I don't know what I'm not my main point is not so much the beef with what other creators are maybe putting out there and like what they're
Yeah.
teaching. My it's more of like witnessing how much energy people have locked in frustration and this feeling
Mm.
like they can't change things. You know, like the example of the woman at the meetup who had got daggers
Mhm.
in her eyes when she was confronted with like this might be a solvable problem. You know, and that
Yeah.
across the spectrum of the world's problems, like that is activating to me. That malaise that people have, that
Mm.
willingness to just be like,
Mm.
our world is falling apart
Mm.
and I don't know what to do about it. But that is more of what activates me is that, like, I don't know what it, I don't, I like, I think one on one, I'm good one on one because I can be, or like in small groups, like I can be so much more empathetic. But when I'm like talking about bigger scale things, I get
Yeah.
really fired up because and I'm sourcing again from like so many people that it's like that are like so many instances and groups of people that are coming to my mind right now. And when I just think what could be, it's so hard to not react to that.
Yeah. I think that your expression is it's actually life-giving. Like I'm feeling life from you on the other side. And the other thing I was thinking about, which I don't have, is Jen, you've worked with so many people and coaching people in career transitions. So you've been like up close and personal with this with many different flavors of people because you are so gifted and I think also receive enjoyment out of this work. Then it's put you so much closer to it in a way where you can guide someone, but they ultimately have control over what they do. So that's like a very different place to be coming from with this. Whereas it's just sort of me, myself, and I, and right now, and like I feel like my biggest confrontation with that is friends who have just decided to stay in their jobs and repeat limiting beliefs. That sounds aggressive. Stay in their jobs because they haven't
Mm-hmm.
arrived yet to what they want to do that makes them happy. So I just say that just to I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. Like you have a different vantage, like you're holding so much more evidence around this in a completely different way. And it makes me go back to thinking about how anger is beautiful and inspires us into action. And I think I should, I mean, anyway, not that I value so much your different response to this and I sometimes wonder like what are the things that I get activated around and like what what would that do for me um
Yeah, but I mean, this is the beauty too, though, because your response is beautiful to me and it's like something to learn from. And I almost am like that, almost feels like more evidence in and of itself of why just being on the path and like following it is so needed is because like we need all different types. Like,
Mm.
so like
Mhm.
maybe so it's like
Totally.
everybody's voice and perspective and background is valuable and needed to usher in whatever change we want to see because if people feel like again like if your example is so beautiful of this meetup like if you would have responded in more of a like oh well I don't know, any way that would have made it sound like that wasn't a problem for you, that it was just, well, I didn't worry about that. I don't know. But just like in a not compassionate energy, it would not have allowed, she would have used it as further fuel for her block.
Mm,
She could have used it for further fuel
totally.
for his block, you know? So
Totally.
there's not the style, like, whatever. I'll be done with this.
No, but oh, I love that, Jen. I think this is a really cool reminder and concept to wrap up on. It makes me think I'm the oldest of four children, and we are all have very different personalities. Growing up, we lived in tight quarters, and my mom always said, shout out mom, she always was like, it takes all kinds of kinds, which of course is
Oh,
just, a common phrase, but to have her reinforce that always, especially when we were feeling very different from each other of this needs to happen this way, why aren't you doing this? And like feeling like we couldn't understand each other. Just having her reminder that all of our personalities are very different. They're all beautiful. We all completely just shot off in different directions. And when I look back, I'm like, oh, we've had a lot of rich family experiences because of that. And everyone brings something different to the table. So I think that's a beautiful
wow.
observation, Jen.
Well, that's a beautiful story too. I mean, I like that, Jess's mom. That's great.